Cemeteries are places of power. They're sacred. Every headstone here is a text. It's a short text of someone's experience, and each text connects to another text, which means that you have a story of a community here. We are at East End Cemetery, founded in 1897 by a group of prominent African Americans. For a very long time, cemeteries were segregated up until the end of the 60s, early 1970s. So in my lifetime, black people and white people in certain states couldn't be buried together.
We're next door to Evergreen Cemetery. Both are historic African-American cemeteries founded in the 1890s. So Evergreen was founded in 1891, East End in 1897. And that's important when you consider their development and their decline, because they were founded essentially right at the time that Jim Crow was closing in on the South. If you think about the dates, 1896 was Plessy v. Ferguson. So this cemetery was founded a year later.
Jim Crow followed African Americans to the grave. They needed their own cemeteries, and they invested everything that they had in these places through families, fraternal organizations, churches, employees groups. They all invested in order to maintain these places. So this is a really powerful 16-acre site for understanding African American history. And then, of course, it's also a sacred site. It's also hallowed ground because so many, somewhere between 15,000 and 16,000 people are buried here. An individual headstone tells a story of a person. Sometimes there's almost no information. Sometimes there's a lot. A headstone 20, 30 feet away may have the name of the same church. So you have a connection there. And when you start looking around, you begin to be able to draw some lines. You begin to move your conversation from the individual headstone to, well, okay, what do I know about the institutions that they worked through, helped establish? But African Americans had to create entirely different institutions because white institutions didn't want them. So that in and of itself is a pretty mind-blowing achievement. Being able to navigate the racist society and then creating institutions that, to the best of your ability, you've walled off from the worst of society's racism. For a good chunk of time, African Americans, churches, employee groups, individual families, friends, mutual aid societies, fraternal organizations, they were able to maintain these places. That generation kind of passed on, and then certain people hired others to take care of their plots. But the full weight of Jim Crow came to bear on the African American community and kind of pulled people in different directions. And then, of course, Jim Crow directed resources not toward places such as this, but places that served particular segments of the white community. One domino falls and a lot of other dominoes go down.
"10 years ago, this was an impassable forest where markers were, for the most part, invisible. It's difficult to overstate the overgrowth. Just a giant tangle of green that we effectively had to bushwhack through, in addition to everything that has fallen over the years. So the terrain was totally uneven. Plus, many of the people buried here were not buried in vaults. which were not required at one point. And so over time, those graves have sunk. And with them, often the headstone itself has sunk as well. We don't have records for this cemetery, so in many cases, the only evidence we have of a person's presence here is their headstone. There we go. The act of uncovering the headstone is probably the most powerful thing of all. It's one thing to walk through the cemetery and read the markers. It's another to participate in sort of bringing that stone to light, because many people who participate in that, I think, feel a personal connection to the name on that headstone. And then we've, with our academic partners at the University of Richmond and VCU, we've created a digital map of the cemetery. So now every single marker, almost every single marker that we've uncovered over the past 7 years has been mapped precisely using drone imagery. And it's our hope then that that is a tool that families and other people who are interested in this cemetery, interested in particular people, can use to find those markers in the cemetery.
What we're doing isn't just tidying up a burial ground. What we're doing isn't just reclaiming headstones from nature, but we are reclaiming a history that connects. There's a parallel narrative here about the African American community that's been systematically excised from curriculum and culture and books. It's all here. It's all here. African American, we talk about resistance and resilience, but achievement. The knowledge, the stories, the soul, the heart in this place can be transformative of our messed up and riven country. And I think that narratives embedded here have to be revealed so that they can really contend with the false narratives that we've been fed. That's what I'd say.